going back to since we're on the crew level, the screenplay the story at least, was thought up by Harve Bennett. Once again, he was the one who suggested they bring Khan as the villain. Jack B. Sowards, and an uncredited guy named Samuel A. Peoples. I feel those who are uncredited deserve credit. And the final screenplay was credited to Jack B. Sowards, and I think the writing for this movie is like dialogue and kind of story.
I go B on it.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some scenes that were a little forced, but I mean, I think the characters help make the dialogue, or help rescue it. Maybe it's a C in the hands of another cast, but
the main thing that makes it work definitely is the cast, and I had something, but I forgot it. But anyway, uncredited also, the director, Nicholas Meyer, he did some uncredited writing, and he later would get credit for the sequels. But how do you think the direction of Wrath of Khan was?
In terms of...
Well, just as a movie.
Just as a movie? I mean, I think it was well done.
I think it was some of the most top-notch directing that Star Trek has ever had.
Mm-hmm. Seamless.
Something I feel like the Star Trek franchise always, like something that kind of held it back from being great in my eyes, was while Star Wars felt like they were landmarks of cinema, Star Trek, even though I really like what I've seen of it, kind of feels like run-of-the-mill summer action movies. The ones that really stick out as something more to me are Wrath of Khan and First Contact.
Okay.
I mean, they're all very good. The sixth one definitely has some extra juice to it.
Yeah, that's a standalone one. And I would say the first Abrams reboot, probably one of the better ones as well. But in terms of direction, yeah, I mean, even the fact, like you mentioned before, with Khan never actually in a scene with Kirk, making that work, I think, is a credit to the director.
Yeah. So. It takes a lot to have a movie where the villain and the hero never really come face to face.
Right. And the pacing, I mean, you had the mix. You had the intense action scenes, and then some of the slower scenes, like when they were down on the Genesis planet. And I think it worked. I think they blended well. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't always hyper action, wasn't always, boring dialogue or exposition. You had the nice blending between the two.
You said it perfectly. I feel The Wrath of Khan had a good, even feel to it. You say some scenes were a little forced. Well, every Star Trek movie has that.
Most movies do, yeah.
But of all of them, and this might be the first time I've agreed with the fan base's general opinion of a franchise. Of all the Star Trek movies I've seen, like I said, I'm more of a next generation, so First Contact is my favorite. But of the original cast movies, Wrath of Khan is definitely the best. I would definitely call it a sci-fi classic. I don't know if it would be a landmark of cinema, but of its genre, it is almost perfect, and anyone who loves sci-fi should definitely check it out. If you're like me, who's a bit OCD about his movies, I have OCD, but anyway, you might want to start with the first one if you can bear a long movie.
But carve out half a day there.
But Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan, I definitely think it lives up to its legacy. Mm-hmm. We've talked about pretty much everything, I think. Mm-hmm. Last person to mention, Robert Sallin, who was the main credited producer. And funny enough, I read, he never produced any other movie before or after Wrath of Khan. Which is a little odd.
Out. Drop the mic.
And Harve Bennett, I read that some of the people who brought him on, I don't know how they were they may have been working with this before Disney. Some of the people who brought him on to Star Trek were Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to mention or talk about for this video is a brief summary of my feelings on the other original movies.
Okay.
And this is all going to be spoilers, so we're pretty much done with the review of the second movie. And if you've seen the other movies, stick around.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts on The Search for Spock. I think it's a good movie. I thought it was well done, except for a few things. One, it completely goes back on the message of Wrath of Khan. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Or the one.
Yeah. And at the end, by the end of the third one, they outright say the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many.
It's a paradox. Yeah.
Yeah, and Genesis, like, the second film ends on a note that implies it created a planet and it did it well. Like, I know they brought up the possibility that it could lead to the Doomsday, but the way the second one ended, it seemed like they were going the positive route.
Not anymore.
And the third one, the planet destroys itself. It just
Planet uncrack.
Yeah, it just goes boom. And
growing up, it was not my favorite,
but
I've come to appreciate it more as an adult.
Yeah, and David Marcus, I feel like they definitely gave him more development in the
I
third.
think a better performance. Yep.
And then they killed him off.
Yep.
Which I feel like ruined any further chance of development.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the main problems I have with Search for Spock is everything that they set up for great potential in the second one, or stuff that they ended on a fine note in the second one, they immediately ruin it in the third one. I mean, Search for Spock is a good film, like, and the idea of bringing Spock back is good.
Yeah,
but
the whole resurrection theme, I mean.
But I feel like they did it too quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, the movie was made 1 year after Wrath of Khan.
I think they were surprised how well Wrath of Khan did.
Yeah, and not saying the next movie can't be about them bringing him back, but I feel like the movie itself takes place from what Kirk's monologue at the beginning says, just a few weeks after Wrath of Khan, and they immediately go back on all the stuff they talked about. I think the movie should have taken place a few years after Wrath of Khan.
Maybe.
Like, giving them time to mourn, more time to mourn, and show just how the Spock's death affected them. But I feel like they just jumped back into getting him back in there too quickly.
Now, for me, my favorite parts of the movie, probably, there were some good action sequences there. I liked them stealing the ship. I thought that was a great sequence. I didn't mind the self-destruct sequence as well. I mean, I thought that worked. Many of the planet-based sequence were okay. What I still can't get over is just Christopher Lloyd as the Klingon commander there.
Just
that was a little bit of a stretch.
He's a little lame.
It doesn't seem Klingon-ish to me. But the fact that they included the Klingons in the storyline, I also appreciated. So if you get past the whole Christopher Lloyd piece, I mean...
And you say Ricardo Montalban considered Khan one of his favorites. Christopher Lloyd considers his role in Star Trek III to be one of his favorites. Maybe it's just because he got to wear the makeup.
Did he not see the Back to the Future? I mean...
Who knows? He's been in a lot of shitty movies the past 15 years. Something Bad Girls from Valley High. I've seen parts of that. I don't recommend checking it out. Well, you can if you want, but what I saw was like, ugh. Like, Lloyd, why?
I just didn't buy him as a Klingon. But that's me.
Yeah.
So overall, I think this is probably one of the stronger of the odd movies in the franchise.
Yeah. And Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. What do you think of it?
I love it. I think it's one of the better movies. Maybe I have that because I watched it when it first came out. Because when I rewatched it, it didn't age as well as I had remembered it. but I still love the premise. I think it was a little too hooked on the whole environmental message and the humpback whales. I mean, they were trying to, send a social message there. But, I mean, it was the most humorous of the movies, and it still it completed that story arc, and I thought it was pretty consistent with that. You get to see a different side of the characters as well. But I thought the humpback whale thing was a little bit forced. But I like them being on the Klingon ship. I thought that was a nice angle.
Yeah. I think it's cool to have a Star Trek movie where the Enterprise is not the main ship. Mm-hmm. And the time travel thing, you say it's dated. Well, they go back in time to when they think humpbacks were still around, the 80s. And it gave them... It was cool to see the Star Trek crew in, at the time, modern America. Just seeing how people from the future would... what they think of today.
Yeah.
And I just like the idea of taking people out of their time period and seeing how they react to just the way things are at a certain date. And it definitely it was, Leonard Nimoy set out to make it part comedy. Leonard Nimoy, he directed Search for Spock and The Voyage Home, 3 and 4. And he did a pretty good job as a director. And he really carried it, especially with the 4th. You can imagine how hard it must have been to both act as Spock and then be the director.
Right.
And this is probably gonna make you mad.
No.
Out of all the Star Trek movies, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, is my least favorite of the originals.
Really?
And the sad thing is, I do kind of like it. I like the time travel angle. I like seeing them going back to at the time, modern America. But there is one thing about it that just prevents me from giving it my own thumbs up or like. That fucking whale-loving scientist, whatever she was. Holy fucking shit, did I hate that character. She was... Okay, the movie is definitely preachy. It has a save the environment message. And I hate that kind of movie, but I thought...
You also don't like the damsel in distress kind of lead actress. So that would definitely be in this particular role.
Yeah, that
The helpless damsel in distress.
I don't know how helpless she was. She does kind of help them, but here the main thing
she was wilting.
The main problem I had, her name was Jillian. I remember that. She's played by Catherine Hicks, the mother from Child's Play and Seventh Heaven. But I think Catherine Hicks did a good job as this character. But the thing I don't like about... I thought the Save the Environment message was well handled in the first 40 minutes of The Voyage Home. Like, it was not in your face.
Right, then it does get there.
They just say, this probe that's destroying Earth is trying to communicate using the language of humpback whales.
I hate the probe, by the way. I think it was poorly designed.
Got it. And so they humpback whales don't exist anymore, and they feel the only way is to go back and to get them is to go back in time. And I get it. The message is, you hunt until it's extinct. In the future, something like this may happen, which it will not. And I thought that was handled pretty well. It wasn't in your face, but when they brought this character in, she was just screaming every single scene. I could not take it. Throughout the film, I know a movie can't talk back to you, but I got so annoyed, I was just like, shut up!
Yeah.
By the end, I was just like, shut the fuck up! It was just unbearable.
And see, I was able to just kind of take her out of my experience of the film. But.
Just unbearable.
I think I put it as number 3 of the original 6.
And now, let's talk about Star Trek V, The
Mm.
Final Frontier.
Makes number 1 look good.
My thoughts? It's a bad film. But I still had a lot of fun watching it.
Well, you gotta watch it. It's part of the original canon. I made my daughter watch it, even though I think it is the worst of all of them. I'm talking about all 12. I think it is number 12.
Did she disown you as your father?
No, but she stopped paying attention in the middle of it. And I don't blame her for that. I don't know, this movie, I mean, some of the backstory is just that, Kirk wanted a directing project and had been snubbed before, but...
The 5th one is definitely the worst Star Trek movie I've seen, but at the same time, it is fun. Like, I kind of get off on watching bad movies and enjoying them. Not always. Like, if it pisses me off, I do not like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it did with you, but me, Star Trek V did not piss me off, because I'm not a big Trekkie, but I did kind of enjoy some of the bad moments, and there were some good ideas in the movie.
I love the intergalactic city of peace, and how then it kind of turns into this outpost where they send all these washed up has-beens from each of the different empires. I really like that aspect. And, I don't know, maybe even the takeover of the Enterprise, the whole insurrection on the planet, I didn't mind that either, because that was believable to me. Everything else, I mean, the half-brother angle, the whole looking for God angle, the whole Kirk and Spock almost betrayal angle, I hated it. Hated it. Poorly done.
Exactly. I feel like these ideas are good, and some scenes were well executed, but I feel like if it had better writing and a better director,
yeah,
and like a lot of better writing, it maybe could have been passable.
Sure.
The 5th one, is pretty preachy in its message as well. The idea, like, William Shatner, he co-wrote and directed the 5th one, and he's been pretty open about the film being a slam against televangelists and organized religion. And the way it kind of plays out in the end, I could see parts that worked, but once again, it's not the best direction. But at the same time, I kind of liked what he was going for, and as preachy as the 5th one is, and I don't really care for preachy movies, as preachy as it is, it's not as preachy as Save the Whales.
C- though on its best day for me. I'll give you credit for that. But how did you like the planetary scenes, like when they were on shore leave? Do you find that a good or a bad part of the film?
I actually kind of like that part.
So did I.
Like,
I thought it was endearing.
Everybody has kind of bitched about the row your boat scene, but it's pretty enjoyable and just shows some great conversations between the 3 main characters. And my mom, she's a huge Trek fan, and she has said that she loves even the 5th one, because in her opinion, Star Trek to her is kind of like family, and you don't turn your back on family.
That's why Lauren had to watch it.
And my thought to my mom was, touching, but we're not the goddamn mafia. But yeah, it shows some nice kind of, shows where they are, where their relations are, and give it a little development.
Mm.
I think,
and I get it. I mean, they've been talking about how old they are, but I think it went really kind of over the top in the 5th movie, playing out the, oh, we're old. And I mean, this is the 4th movie now that they've dealt with this theme of the aging cast. Enough already. We get it. You're old. But you're still saving the world, so keep on doing what you do. Done.
And also,
a little over the top.
Shatner at control, he just wanted to make a movie that showed pretty much Kirk as Superman from what I've read. And it's pretty obvious because he originally wanted Bones and Spock to portray Kirk like the rest of the cast does in the film. but Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelley refused to go that angle.
Yeah, well, that whole betrayal, near betrayal angle, that just...
Because as they said, Bones and Spock would never betray Kirk.
I don't get why you even would have ever written that in there. I mean...
Because Shatner was stroking his ego.
Hmm.
And do you know what the original ending for the fifth one is?
I do not.
The real film ends with them going to what they think is God at the center of the galaxy, and then finding out it's not, it's an alien that has a lot of godlike powers and fooled them. The original ending had this supposed God revealing that it was the devil and capturing Spock and Bones and the rest of the crew, and apparently tried taking them to hell. And then Kirk going in and fighting the devil and kicking the devil's ass to save the crew.
They should have included that as a deleted scene. That would have been interesting.
I don't think they shot it. There was a lot of budget constraints.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I kind of like the end there where they shoot the alien, but...
Yeah. It just...
snoozer.
Wow, Shatner's ego. Like, I've seen him in interviews. He really is full of shit. But that would have been a horrible ending.
Yeah.
And,
maybe it would have won a raspberry at that point.
The film did win raspberries.
Oh, it did.
Worst picture... maybe I'm wrong. Worst picture, worst director and actor, both to Shatner. And... before I get off track, something I did not like was, even though most of the supporting characters weren't given that much development, like the main three, anyone beneath Kirk, Spock, and Bones is given a lot of scenes that pretty much humiliate the characters.
Yep.
Like, the moment that was the most painful for me was when Scotty's like, I know this ship like the back of my hand.
Oh, he hits his head?
Yeah. That was awful. That wasn't even funny from a slapstick point of view. Like, I think the character would be smarter than that.
I don't think they've even designed the ship like that, but oh well.
And the most bizarre scene in the fifth one, I mentioned it earlier, is the naked fan dance with Uhura.
Terrible.
Now, a lot of people complain about Nichelle Nichols being 57 when she did that scene.
That's not what's offensive.
Personally, I think she looked pretty good for her age. But what made the scene shocking, the scene comes out of nowhere,
yes,
pretty much, and my thought is, was this really, they're doing it to distract the bad guys? Was this really the best decision they came up with?
Now, would her really have gone along with this plan? I don't even think so. I don't even think it's consistent with the character. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it is by far that's saying much, it's the weirdest scene in the fifth movie. And
there are some weirder scenes in the first one, potentially.
Yeah. And, I think we've talked enough about the fifth.
Yes.
Let's get on to probably the second best in the original movies, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. This was a good movie to end the original cast movies on.
Yes.
Like, it was right before... It takes place before apparently Kirk and a few others are supposed to retire.
Again with the old theme, by the way. But this one, it wasn't over the top.
Mm-hmm. And it had great action.
Yes.
And some pretty good drama moments, and...
The villain, one of the most, I think, underrated actors of this generation, Christopher Plummer. I think he also nailed it.
Playing the bald Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was a great Klingon, and there's been a lot of debate and a lot of arguments that the Klingons were villainized too much in the original movies.
I love the whole plot line of needing peace because of their planet, need to relocate from their planet. I love that angle. Masterful.
And I kind of enjoy the Klingons as villains. I love the character Worf in The Next Generation, but I kind of miss having them kind of as the villains.
Yeah.
They were great evil aliens.
Well, this came out right at the end of the Cold War, so they were playing up that theme of...
Yeah.
No
political,
longer enemies.
political satire commentary.
Yeah.
And while it's good to make peace, at the end, like my grandfather came by after I watched the movie
Mm-hmm.
and talked about it, and I told him, but peace is so boring.
True.
Like action movies, if people resolved everything, we wouldn't have most action movies.
But I did appreciate. I love the battle scene at the end there. I love the murder mystery aspect to it.
Yeah.
I even didn't mind
like
the
the
scenes on Rura Pente. I mean, I didn't even mind them.
Yeah, I love the mystery part too.
Mm-hmm.
It just It tried a lot of stuff that was new to these movies.
Mm-hmm.
It tried something different, which really helped it, especially for its final film.
Although there were maybe a little bit too many There were a little bit too many similarities between Plummer's character and maybe Khan. I think it was just a different version. I don't know how you feel about that, but
There might be like
Captain Ahab, Shakespearean
Star Trek 2 and
villain
6
character.
both had Nicholas Meyer as a director.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that had something to do with it.
But there was enough distance and difference between the two. I didn't think it took away from it too much.
The worst character,
Valeris?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Kim Cattrall as Valeris the Vulcan in Star Trek 6. Originally, that character was supposed to be Savick.
Which I think would have been much better.
But Gene Roddenberry, who was still alive enough to hear about the ideas, he did not want her to end up being a villain.
Mm.
Well, Nicholas Meyer thought...
Go for it.
Yeah, he thought it would have been better. And Meyer and Roddenberry really were at odds throughout the production of the sixth one.
Mm-hmm.
And the last meeting they had, none of them said this. This didn't happen, but the last meeting they had might as well have ended with one of them telling the other to go fuck himself. And then Roddenberry died a few days later.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of mixed emotions on how the film was going. And like every Star Trek movie I've seen, even The Wrath of Khan at times, he agrees, there are flaws to the sixth one, but not enough to ruin it.
No, this is A work, in my opinion. Second best to the original 6. I like the action.
The thing, the thing about, I just gotta mention, the thing about Kim Cattrall as Valeris that I really didn't like is she is way too sweet. Like, her personality just comes off as sweet. Like, kind of perky and innocent. Like, she doesn't show much emotion.
She's not devious.
Like, she wasn't stern enough, I think, to be a Vulcan.
Yeah.
Like, she seemed almost happy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of weird.
Well, I thought a very weird scene was the mind meld between Spock and her at the end. I thought that was kind of an uncomfortably weird scene.
That scene has been compared by many to being kind of like a mind rape scene.
I can see that.
And it's an interesting angle to go at, but I don't think we'll delve into that today. But yeah, I can't believe I forgot. Cybok in the fifth one. That was... As he is badly written, and he's given a lot of weird stuff, but I'll give the actor who played him credit. He pulled off a lot of his scenes pretty well.
He tried.
Yeah, he did the best he could, but it was so... Even though this character is supposed to be a Vulcan that's kind of let his emotions take control, it's kind of weird to see a Vulcan laugh so much.
Yeah, I just don't buy the whole story of him being Spock's half brother.
Yeah, it just came out of nowhere, and
even the I don't even like the clothing he wore, for crying out loud.
I think Spock at this point, he would have told people that he had a brother.
Yes.
Yeah, it just seems out of character for him.
Spock was not big into missing details.
Yeah, and Doug Walker in his Nostalgia Critic review said it would have worked just as fine if they were just old friends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the sixth one was a perfect film to end the original cast movies. And Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan is an all-time sci-fi classic. I completely recommend checking it out. I would say I give it an 8.6 out of 10. You?
I gotta go 9.5. So
It is your favorite movie.
it is.
So this has been my on record third co-review, and thank you for doing this with me, Alex.
Thank you for having me.
Till next time.
Enjoy. Or live long and prosper.
What he'd said.